So irony dies many deaths with Donald Trump. I mean, I don't even have how to begin with this one. This one is a little ridiculous. So the other day on Truth Social, Donald Trump lost whatever was left of his sanity when he railed against Leonard Leo, who you got to know who this guy's name is, right? Leonard Leo is the king of the Federalist Society. And Trump lost his ever loving mind because a court decided that his tariff tantrums were illegal. Now, footnote, an appeals court immediately reinstated his ability to be able to impose these tariffs, and that's kind of traveling along in litigation hell. But as soon as this happened, Donald Trump went to Truth Social and he delivered this screed, as he does, that's just rambling insanity. But I want to highlight a few things that he said about Leonard Leo. He said that he was, quote, new to Washington, and it was suggested that he used the Federalist Society as a recommending source on judges. Quote, I did so openly and freely, but then realized that they were under the thumb of a real sleazebag named Leonard Leo, a bad person who, in his own way, probably hates America and obviously has his own separate ambitions. He openly brags how he controls judges and even justices of the United States Supreme Court. I hope that is not so and don't believe it is. In any event, Leo left the Federalist Society to do his own thing. I am so disappointed in the Federalist Society because of the bad advice they gave me on numerous judicial nominations. This is something that cannot be forgotten. Donald Trump, even coming close to talking about the idea that somebody else is controlling judges or justices of the United States Supreme Court, that SOB is so bitter, isn't he? It's kind of delicious, right? Because he's so mad that he's not getting what he wants from these judges. And there's a slew of judges, some of whom are Trump appointed, that have been rejecting his moves in courts across the United States. And his response has been to threaten them, intimidate them, etc. Right? I mean, he calls for them to be impeached. He calls for all sorts of stuff. And then he also has his lackeys and his cronies doing the same thing. But the reason why this is particularly interesting is because of the following. Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society has been so instrumental in stacking the bench with conservative judges, including Supreme Court justices. And for Trump to bite the hand that feeds him is such a tell. It goes to show that Trump is panicking. He knows that he is losing control of the judiciary. And we talk all the time here at the Katie Phang News Channel about how the judiciary is a co-equal branch of government. And I have been saying for a long ass time that judges need to assert themselves and remind the executive branch and remind Donald Trump that they are co-equal arbiters of the law and of power and of the rule of law, and that Trump just needs to sit the fuck down. I mean, this is how the Federalist Society has been described. I'm going to read some of these descriptions to you. Founded in 1982 during Ronald Reagan's first term, the Federalist Society has long been the preeminent conservative legal organization in the country. That's from Politico. And then David French did an op-ed in the New York Times about this Trump-Leonard Leo feud. And, you know, David French is pretty damn conservative, and he said that the Federalist Society is easily the largest and most influential organization of conservative lawyers in the country. Trump's decision in his first run for president to publish a Supreme Court shortlist stocked with the leading lights of the Federalist Society helped him win over skeptical conservatives in 2016. Now, I want to take a minute here, right? Because this is what I'm talking about. The stupidity of Donald Trump to bite the hand that feeds him. Trump had to convince conservatives way back in 2016, religious zealots, right, about the abortion being overturned, conservative legal zealots about stacking the bench, including the Supreme Court, I don't know, with justices that would overturn Roe v. Wade, right? I mean, it's a whole ecosystem of conservatism. And these people, they always complain when the leopards bite their faces off, right? But You have to keep in mind, though, that the Federalist Society has been this unbelievably powerful organization with people like Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito and, Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, I could go on and on. And it's not just at the highest levels of our judiciary. It goes all the way down to state court judges. And I'll get into that in a second, right? But the reason why this is such an interesting thing is Trump realizes that he's losing. And when you're losing this badly and your answer is to go after and to literally, in his Truth Social post, say that Leonard Leo is a backroom hustler and that the ruling by the U.S. Court of International Trade is, quote, so wrong and so political, again, what a tell. He's desperate and he's panicking because he knows that he's losing control of a federal judiciary that he thinks that just because he got them appointed, that they are going to do his bidding. Some of which have been proven correct, right? I mean, they've proved him correct, that they have done what he has asked them to do. And again, this is the most transactional man that we've ever known, Donald Trump. But a lot of them have said no. Why? Because some of them actually believe in the rule of law and they will not be cowed into submission by a convicted felon. So the other thing I wanted to kind of share with you is the following. One of the three judges from the U.S. Court of International Trade that said that Trump's tariffs were illegal, one of them was a nominee of Donald Trump. He was appointed in 2018. So, of course, Donald Trump thinks if I gave you the job, then you owe me your soul, and that was the deal with the devil. But some people are saying, you can't have my soul. So, Leonard Leo remains a co-chair of the Federalist Society. He's the former vice president of the group. And in response, Leo didn't grow a pair and said in an email that he was, quote, very grateful for President Trump transforming the federal courts, and it was a privilege being involved. There's more work to be done for sure, but the federal judiciary is better than it's ever been in modern history, and that will be President Trump's most important legacy. Now, again, putting aside the ass kissing in that response from Leonard Leo, he is right. Think about people like Mitch McConnell. Think about how long and for how insidiously long Mitch McConnell and others have been stacking the federal judiciary to make sure that the conservatives' will is done. And I am not celebrating Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society standing up to Donald Trump, but I've always told you guys that we have to take our wins where we get them. And if they do stand up to him in any principled way, then we have to recognize it as a victory for democracy. And in this instance, again, a Trump appointee did the right thing. Now, the other thing I want to share with you is this, though. People like Mike Davis, who has been described by Politico as being a key Trump ally on judicial nominations, says this. Nobody knew who Leonard Leo was before President Trump gave him key role-picking judges. Leonard Leo took too much credit from President Trump, and he got filthy rich, then he abandoned President Trump, especially during the lawfare against Trump. More whining. Truth, though, Leonard Leo did get filthy rich off of being in the Federalist Society. I mean, think about how much money, especially dark money, has been flowing back and forth to be able to get these people on the bench. But again, Mike Davis, being a lackey to Donald Trump, trying to sit there and support his, cult leader, and Mike Davis taking pot shots at Leonard Leo is just deepening the divide. So in a way, too, we got to be happy about that, because you start driving a wedge between these guys, the better off it's going to be for us. But the other reason why we know that there is a panic that is ensuing in this administration is, and I talked about this in another one of my videos when I talked about Emile Beauvais being nominated to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, or to be nominated by Donald Trump, is Pam Bondi announcing that the American Bar Association will not be able to access or be involved in the judicial nominations process anymore by giving recommendations of, people who should be appointed. That's another big tell that they're trying to eliminate what would otherwise be the involvement of traditional organizations. Now, given the ABA, the American Bar Association, is apolitical, it's non-political, it's non-partisan. But still, when you start to try to take the judicial process and you try to streamline it in a way where it only fits your narrative or only fits your goals, it's because you're terrified of when the truth comes out about the qualifications of your nominees, right? And the other big tell is the fact that Trump is picking people like Emil Bovee to be nominated for federal appeals court positions versus people that are going to be more qualified. And the Emil Bovee nomination is interesting too, because people within the Federalist Society say that Emil Bovee nom is a crappy one. So again, for what it's worth, small victories we're getting here and there. David French's op-ed of the Times actually had this really interesting analysis. It's a political scientist at Stanford. His name is Adam Bonica. And as of May of 2025, quote, Republican-appointed district judges ruled, and that's trial court, federal trial court is district court, okay? District judges ruled against Trump 72% of the time. That number is remarkably close to the 80% rate of losses before Democratic appointed judges. I'm going to repeat this. As of May of 2025, Republican appointed district judges ruled against Trump 72% of the time. That number is remarkably close to the 80% rate of losses before Democratic appointed judges. What does that tell you? Convicted felon Donald Trump. If you're losing this badly with Republican judges who've been appointed, it should tell you that you done fucked up and that you should really stop doing the illegal stuff that you're doing, because you're just going to keep losing along the way. But again, that's why, going after Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society that is trying to maintain some modicum of independence from the dirty deeds of Donald Trump, et cetera, that's the reason why Trump is getting mad and Trump is panicking. And listen, I said this with Preet Bharara the other day on a Substack Live. It's not just the Federalist Society funneling help and support to Donald Trump or the Oval Office or the presidency, right? This is a whole bunch of other federal appointments that are at play here. Trial court, district court level, appellate court, right? Federal level, right? So you got to keep in mind that there are senators that are counting on this support from the Federalist Society as well. Congress people. I mean, there are a lot of people that are Republicans that are swimming in this conservative cesspool that definitely want the help of the Federalist Society, especially the lawyers, right? So another part of French's analysis that I appreciated was this, quote, if your decisions are the measure of your worth, then seeking the applause of the crowd can lead you down a dangerous path. If you try to intimidate a judge, you're often confirming to the judge the necessity of her or his ruling. And some judges take acts of intimidation as a kind of personal insult. They don't become afraid, they just get mad. Well, amen. What have I been saying? If the judges get angry and they say, do not infringe upon my ability to be a separate independent branch of government, and this is the message they're sending to Donald Trump, because clearly Congress isn't doing shit, then you know what? Good for them. Good for the judiciary to say, you want my ruling so badly? It's a big, obvious tell from you. And so guess what, Donald Trump? I'm going to do the right thing and not give you what you're looking for. So I also wanted to bring to your attention some news that's from today, which is Sunday, by the way, June 1st. Happy June 1st to everybody. Rabbit, rabbit. So a really cool thing is going down in Mexico, and maybe we'll call it an experiment in democracy, but let's see what happens. So in Mexico, for the first time in the country's history, Mexico will elect more than 2,600 judges and magistrates, including those who will sit on the country's Supreme Court and hundreds of other federal, state, and local tribunals. And this is in the New York Times. How did this happen? Well, President Andres Manuel López Obrador, it was an idea that was suggested by him, and the idea to elect judges by popular vote, so the people will elect their judges, they will not be appointed anymore. And that idea was championed by Claudia Sheinbaum, the current president of Mexico. So supporters of this idea of having people to elect all of the judges across the country of Mexico says it eliminates nepotism, corruption, cartel-backed judges being bought in some way. But then opponents basically say, okay, but underqualified candidates can become judges. And oh, by the way, you can't really eliminate the cartel influence. In fact, it might make it even worse or heavier. Mexicans perceive judges to be among the country's most corrupt officials, second only to traffic agents, according to this article. So here's the thing, though. So half of Mexico's judiciary will be elected today and the rest in 2027. But it's kind of wild. You have more than 7,700 candidates that are running for these positions. And it says, unlike regular elections, where political parties can finance campaigns, aspiring judges for these races were not allowed to rely on public or private funding. Instead, they had to use their own resources and to rely upon, quote, guerrilla marketing on social media to attract attention. 72% of voters, of about 1,000 voters in a recent poll, said the judicial election was needed. But here's the rub. But only a small fraction of them, only 23%, actually knew who the candidates were. The nationwide vote counts that will determine the final results will take place on June 15th. So I kind of want to ask you guys this question. I mean, I want to know what you think. Does it make sense to have people elect the judges versus having them be appointed? I mean, I see the pros and cons, right? I'll give you an example here in Florida, because I was a part of the judicial system here, meaning I actually applied to be a judge and I was nominated on a couple of occasions. But the governor at the time was Jeb Bush, and let me tell you why that backfired for me. So at the age of 30, which is the minimum age that you can be a judge in Florida, I was nominated twice to be a judge. But it was the governor who had to appoint me through the appointments process. So there's two ways to become a judge in Florida. You can be appointed by the governor, and then the seat within which you are appointed, if you come up maybe in a year or two to defend your seat, then you got to defend your seat through what? An election process. Now, if you opt to become a judge through the regular elections process, again, this Mexico idea, right? The people voting for a judge to be, on the bench, that's a 6-year seat you have. And after 6 years, your term is up and you got to run again to defend your seat or whatever. So the amount of ass kissing that happens to be able to get an appointment is profound. I'm just going to be very blunt and transparent because that's what I tell you. I always am, right? So you not only had to kiss the right ass, but you also had to make sure that you touted the right conservative, kind of strict constructionist, originalist, language kind of thing, blah, blah, blah. And listen, I'm not saying that I did not play the politics game for this, but I will say that I do believe it, though. I mean, I am a believer that we should follow the law, what the statutes say, but I'm also a believer that there's the evolution of time, right? And things change from when the original, language of the Constitution is formed. But the reason why the Federalist Society, and I talked about this a few minutes ago, why it's so important, it's not just the federal judges, it's also state court judges, because the Federalist Society actually has a very strong thumb on the scale, even on state court judicial things. How do I know that? Well, whether you are a, quote, Democrat or a Republican, which, by the way, in Florida, you're neither, right? It is a nonpartisan experience to be a judge. You're not supposed to ever really be a partisan judge, but you're definitely not running as a, quote, Democrat to be a judge, et cetera. But in this instance, all of these judges, even state court judges, they go to the Federalist Society meeting. They go to the Federalist Society conference, and they go and they hobnob, and they're with all of these other judges, and they go and they see people like Mike Pence and John Gorsuch, et cetera. And it's stunning to me because why? Why are you doing that? Are you doing that because it's going to help you? Well, the answer is obviously yes. And that's why they do it. And I think that just underscores the importance of the influence of the Federalist Society. You cannot ignore that. And so if you're smart and you know how to play the game and do an end run around this, then that's what you do. But the answer is not to be dumb Donald Trump and piss off Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society. Here's the other part of the Truth Social post he said, which was ridiculous. He said, quote, radical left judges together with some very bad people are destroying America. Get the F out of here. These radical left judges, these are judges that you had a hand in appointing, Donald Trump, or they were appointed under Republican administrations. So how very convenient that when you don't get your way, suddenly there's all radical left judges. It's just intellectually lazy. He is just an intellectually lazy asshole. And the fact that this is what he does, yeah, listen, it's noteworthy. I mean, we're talking about it, right? But it's because it involves such an incredibly powerful and influential organization. But I would like to say this. I would like to say the following. I think it also goes to show, though, in many ways, that the influence and the power of the Federalist Society is going to be waning now. Because if the message is being sent that a president doesn't need you anymore, yeah, are they going to dig in? Sure, they will. But I think it also shows that it's a sign of the times It's a sign of the times that the president is saying, I don't need you to be able to help me with judicial appointments. Now, is it a bad sign when he's just rewarding loyalists like Emile Beauvais? Sure. But I do think that we should look at it and consider the fact that this is a message that's being sent to the Federalist Society. Yo, peace out. There is a big divide now between the Oval Office and you guys, and we don't need you. But then along the same token, right? Federalist Society is telling Donald Trump, we don't need you either. I will say this, the Federalist Society membership, I don't know, it must be like a coven of witches, some blood oath or something. I have no idea. I'm not a member. And yeah, obviously, I never got my judicial appointment, in large part because I spoke out against the Stand Your Ground law that Jeb Bush signed into law with the support of the NRA, being led by Marion Hammer. It was the dumbest law, allowing people to basically do a Wild West shootout in the streets under the guise of standing their ground. What a disaster. And it's proven to be a disaster, by the way, in Florida and other jurisdictions, but that was the large reason why I didn't get appointed. And look where we find ourselves. Instead of being on the bench, I am hanging out with the amazing group of you, and we are learning stuff together. So you know what? As I always say, be mad, be outraged, demand accountability. Let's watch this experiment in Mexico. Let's see how that goes. And let's see what Donald Trump does. Sleazebag going after Sleazebag. Let's see how that Sleazebag duel, let's see who comes out the victor. I'll see you on the other side. Katie Phang here. The truth matters now more than ever. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Thanks for watching.